title, An Uncomfortable Truth. One of the chief put-downs the anti-Constitution folks attempt when arguing with the conservative is, "Oh, you want to take this country back to the Dark Ages. What do you have against women and minorities?" Bear in mind that these same people are suspiciously silent on what is being done to these women and minorities in, say, Muslim lands. If you take the time and do a careful search through the archives of how life was during the days after World War II, when the baby boomer generation was being born, you will find several marked differences between then and now that have nothing whatsoever to do with technology and a whole lot to do with the American culture, and very little of it detrimental to women or minorities. I was born in 1951 in semi-rural Northern California on the coast, well north of San Francisco. I remember playing in the streets and in the woods behind the houses. Doors were kept unlocked. Parents watched all the children, not just their own. The cop on the street was a friend, and there were clearly defined consequences for breaking the rules. If you won a game, you were a winner. If you lost, you suffered the humiliation and took it with good grace and tried to become better so you could be the winner next time. If you got into a fight, it ended when the fight was over. The parents didn't escalate it. Food was real and came from both plants, fish, shellfish, and animals. I remember helping my grandmother make butter from the milk we got from my grandfather's cow. The sausage came from the pigs along with bacon from his smokehouse. I learned to love vegetables because I helped pick them. A Coke was a treat, not the daily beverage, and play meant being outside, running, jumping, climbing, and swimming. People who complained about kids being dressed down were busybodies, and if you failed at school, you had to do it all over again. Self-esteem was earned, not a right, and anyone who refused to work was a bum, regardless of their race. As for bigotry, yes, it existed. But it was not institutionalized as it is today. Simply because the focus has shifted in no way makes it right. Bigotry and racism are wrong, regardless of the source. Criminals had a reason to be afraid of being caught, and if they committed murder, they were executed. Not 20 years later, but within a reasonable amount of time. Life was sacred, children's lives especially so, and the idea that they could be slaughtered in the womb for profit was a notion too monstrous, even for writers of horror stories. Yes, medicine still had a way to go, but it did not have to fight the insurance companies nor the legal profession for its very existence. If a doctor screwed up, he or she was punished. If it was not a real accident, the actual costs were covered, and people moved on. An auto accident was just that. You paid for your part and carried on with your life. Lawmakers dealt with real crime. Lawyers dealt with real crime, not phony assumptions of guilt and a search for who had the deepest pockets. Today's progressives would believe themselves to be in kind of hell if sent back to that time. At least, that is a reasonable assumption. So what am I saying? It is that we have lost our way. As a nation, we have allowed those who have no other agenda than to remove all traces of personal freedom from our lives to gain control of the media, the government, and the teaching of our children. The socialist agenda has eliminated the work ethic, the idea of self-respect, self-reliance, and self-control in exchange for an assumed mantle of social guilt for what may or may not have occurred hundreds of years ago and for a variety of assumed evils perpetrated today simply because you earned what you have worked for. We have become a nation of whiners who allow those who tell the best lie to run our country for the benefit of others, not necessarily the citizens who pay their salaries, but for those who paid and pad their offshore accounts. We have allowed a falsehood called political correctness and wokeness to not only replace fact, but to criminalize those who express any fact that contradicts the dialectic. Normal human nature has become an offense called microaggression, and the very religion the traditional American culture was based on, one of fidelity, neighborliness, and peace, has been classified as a form of terrorism. That is our nation today. And it needs to change back to where it was. Now, there's a series of books after this. And in this series, I will point out various truths that many will find uncomfortable. but they remain factual. Perhaps rather than being upset about the truth, one should try to discover why the truth upsets you and then do something about that. Occasionally, a quote or a source must be cited. This is not fiction. And there has to be a factual basis for factual truth. Each noted source will have an indicator as a number bracketed by parentheses. These footnotes will be found in a link that you will find at the bottom of each video. Hopefully, you will appreciate this. Thank you. Bob Beers, signing out.